Hello, world. Thank you for tuning in to this interview. To begin, I'm going to let our guest tell us a little bit about himself, what his background is, and why the people of DFW should listen to what he has to say.
I'm from a little town outside of Dallas, or inside of Dallas, rather. Matter of fact, deep inside of Dallas. We call it Oak Cliff. I'm from every part of Oak Cliff. The one that's probably known the most to folks is South Oak Cliff. There's West Oak Cliff, East Oak Cliff, and North. I've lived all over the cliff. I've lived all over the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. So when I remove my mask, you might know me from a brand. You might know me from Grumpy Uncle Apparel, clothing company.
Grumpy Uncle Apparel, was that a play on not only you, but also your uncle who died in untimely death?
That is. That actually is. It's me, and it's the motivation that I got from him. My uncle was, he was bigger than life, and I know that they're, just like they do with these American Gangster and all these different stories, because like I said, he was the first person driving around 82, 83 with Rolls Royces and all that kind of stuff in these neighborhoods. But yeah, he inspired me a lot, and I still look back on a lot of things that he taught me.
But if I remove my shades, you may know me from business. I may have hired you. I may have promoted you. I may have fired you. If you look deeper and I remove a couple of pounds, you may know me from music.
Can't let you take a damn thing from me. I'm a man and I don't chase money. Got a true story, my dichotomy. Vinnie for dangerous, triple O sleep. Tell me what the hell they want from me.
You may know me as a guy that they used to call Vinnie Bo of Dallas After Dark, or a guy that they used to call Triple O from Hustler's Grind. But I am all of them. A businessman, a guy that loves music, and a person that's just a real person from Oak Cliff.
Okay, follow-up question for you. I know this may be difficult for you, but can you pinpoint or take us back to when this all started for you?
The reason that I said, if it be your will, Lord, remove this cup from me, is because that's what Jesus said. That's what he said before he was betrayed by Judas the night before, because he knew he'd be offered up and that he'd give his life for us. Well, I'm not giving my life for y'all. I'm not giving my life for the people. But when you go back, it's like a freestyle rap, When you're freestyling, there's only so much you can remember. When you're writing raps, there's only so much you can forget. What I mean by that is, just going back in my mind is going to bring forth some pain. Some pain that I hope to share with you in honesty and truth. And if I'm not able to, forgive me. Maybe in a later date I will be able to. But back to the question. It started a long time ago. I'm a 70s baby, 76 to be exact. But I have no memories until I was about 3 or 4. And most of those memories were pleasant memories. But I can recall some things that weren't so pleasant. At the age of 3 or 4 years old, I witnessed my father laying hands on my mother. And the reason was because his Rolex had come up missing. See, my father always had fancy things and Rolexes and things of that sort. And he had thought my mom had hid it. And so he jumped on her. And I just remember crying and trying to get my mother up. I have no other memories really from the age of 3 to 4. But that kind of propelled me into a future. By the time that I was in the first grade, I was a simple kid, not the roughest, not the toughest. Matter of fact, I loved God. God came to me when I was about in the first grade, came into my heart, and I just knew we'd have a relationship. I was in the choir at church. I went every Sunday, went to children's church. But I had two sides, the dichotomy. And I didn't know when, but I knew one day that those two would meet. Fast forward, we lost the house that I lived in when I was 3. My father gambled a little bit and gambled away the mortgage, from what I understand. So my grandmother was gracious enough to let us move in. It's me and my 2 brothers, my mom. So we moved back to South Oak Cliff. And that's all I knew. I lived in South Oak Cliff from the time that we moved over there until I was in the 1st or 2nd grade, until we moved to a little neighborhood near Keystone Polk. You probably hear about it on songs if you study rap music. If you've heard anything about Oak Cliff, people always mention Keystone Polk. It's a rough place. South Oak Cliff is a rough place. But I didn't jump off the porch until I made it to Keystone Polk. There was 2 things that I learned. One, that I had to stand up for myself, and that I needed to get comfortable being alone. I remember there was a time I was in I don't remember the name of the apartments, but it was Park Village, I believe, something like that. And I was about 5 years old. We had lost the house, so I was living over there. And I used to go out only with my mother or grandmother or something, or unless my father came and picked me up. I hang out with my brothers a little bit in the house, but I had never gone to the store by myself. So my mom gave me 50 cents and allowed me to go to the store. My brother was supposed to come with me. So we went to the store. It was like a 7-Eleven. I don't believe it was, but it was a corner store. You had to cross a street to get there, Cockrell Hill. Cross the street to get there. I'm looking at the candies, because back then you can get stuff for 5 cents, 10 cents, 15 cents. So really 50 cents was a lot. And a guy about 5, 6 years older than me stopped by and said, "Hey, little man, I see you got, your money. I'm a little short on some money. Can I have yours?" And obviously I didn't want to give him my money, but me being 3, 4, 5, whatever I was, I said, "Yeah." But I was crying when I gave it to him. I left that store, walking back towards home, crossing that big street. And my brother met me probably a quarter of the way. He was like, "What's wrong? I thought that you ain't got no candy. What's wrong?" And I told him, I said that the man took my candy. And I cried. I'm sure I cried. And he said, "Who?" He said, "Point him out." It was about 4 boys. My brother, Larry Wayne, the oldest boy, he went over there. He said, "Say, man, you took my brother 50 cents, his quarter, whatever it was." And he just started leaning on him. And I still remember the boy's name to this day. And I'm going to tell you why. Because as my brother was hitting him with his fists and kicking him with his feet, they were saying, "Get him, Darryl, get him, Darryl." And my brother was beating him all the way backwards. So I knew that dude's name because my brother beat him so much that those guys were trying to egg him on, but it didn't work. So I learned that day, okay, my big brother, he gonna fight. My big brother ain't a punk. So I gotta be like that. So that was one of the first lessons I learned. When you're growing up, sometimes you live in a fantasy. You watch your cartoons, you watch your favorite people. You give gifts at Christmas. When you're a tender young age, you're willing to give things. That's why people molest kids, right? That's why the saying is, it's like taking candy from a baby, right? That's why kidnappers pull up and say, "Hey, little boy, little girl, I give you, candy bar, get in the car." Why do you think on the song, The Ghetto Boys, one of the big ones, when Bushwick said, "This year Halloween fell on a weekend. Me and Ghetto Boys went trick-or-treating, robbing little kids for bags." Because, it was easy. So I learned that I couldn't be easy, that I needed to be able to stand up for myself by any means necessary in every situation in life. So that helped me in business, definitely helped me in business. It helped me in the streets. It helped me in relationships. It just helped me overall. But the flip side of that is, it did have a negative impact on my level of trust with people.
All right. So In your opinion, what is the current state of hip hop within the black culture? Could you please share your thoughts with me?
It's a mess. It's a mess. So I started doing music really in the second grade, and again, that was just looking up to my brother, looking up to Larry Wayne, that's my big brother. He had a rap group. They used to do what we call pop lock. So for the people that know about breakdancing, there was pop locking too. So at first, you'd have the music going on, and it'd be the same music. It'd be continuous for like 6 to 9 minutes, whatever it was. And we'd have cardboard boxes, breaking and all that stuff, and pop locking. And then they start rapping, And so you didn't have a rap playing on radios. Matter of fact, it was an underground art form. If you watch any YouTube videos or talk to anybody else, you know that by now. But on Friday nights, everybody would get their tape cassette ready. We had these tape cassettes, and you put some paper into them, and you could, press record right when the time's supposed to come when they're going to play some rap music. So we listen to rap. So my brother picked it up and got really good. He was with a couple of other guys, 4 other guys. One we called Small. One was Honey Bun, and another was Tracy, and they became the BC Rockers. As a matter of fact, I still remember a little hit. We the BC Rockers, these are the facts, and when we on the mic, neither one of us whack. See, there's 4 of us, and we all got class. We gonna speed this beat up kind of fast, That was my boy Mark Small. But anyway, it got me into music. So when they would do those raps like that, I would remember them, Larry Wayne, he had one. Larry Neely, rapping so sweet, they got a twink in my eye. I'm a dirty old man. I got more women than the Ku Klux Klan. I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Forget about them, I'm hella fine, And it was all that old school kind of swag. And so I took that rap right there. We had the same last name. I put my name in front of it, Vincent. And I rapped at the school talent show. And when I rapped at the school talent show, people went crazy for it. And so people requested that rap. Probably until I left that school. But anyway, there was another person at that talent show that went on to become quite a big figure at the time. And his name is Tevin Campbell.
Call me up and I came to see you.
He made his mark singing I Believe the Children of Our Future, the Whitney Houston song. Tore that auditorium up. So he was the only one that put me in my place. And so we had a friendship, and we were friends for a few years after that. So those were the pleasant memories. But moving on to about 4th, 5th grade, when I was 3rd grade, I saw my first man killed over there in those same apartments. Lost his life right in front of me. And I was going to church, went to church. It's a little bit more, more to the story, but I was doing stuff I didn't need to be. So I went to the weed house that morning. Yeah, I was a kid. Went to the weed house to try to buy me some marijuana. Me and my brother, my middle brother. So maybe I'm in the 1st, maybe he's in the 3rd or something like that. But we had smoked it before. We had smoked it with my brother, and he had smoked it with his uncle and so forth and so on. So, it was just one of those things. And we went, and the lady wouldn't sell us any marijuana from the drug house. So we said, okay, well, we got to go to choir practice anyway. So we walked up Keystone Polk to our church, Concord Church, and we went to choir practice. And on the way back, Uzis. And the guy who owned that drug house, the lady wouldn't sell it to us. The guy was laid dead flat in the middle of the street with his chest blown out. And there was a couple of keys of cocaine laying on the ground beside him. It was kind of crazy. And so I never forgot that day. I learned about death. And I learned about it in a real way because, again, I had knocked on the door and seen that guy early that morning. I had seen his girl, and she just walked out and she said, baby, y'all too young. Y'all don't need to be doing this stuff. And she wouldn't let us do it. So that was my first murder that I saw. So things were still okay for a little while. My dad was doing well. My dad had about 5 cars. He had different colors on all of them. He had dogs to match, dogs that could match each color of car. He loved Childs. My dad had all these ostrich and alligator boots and all of this jewelry and Rolexes and Brioni suits and hats. And I'll let you guess what my dad was, or I'll tell you. But I'll tell you in a soft way. My dad was a man of the night. You know, my dad slept all day and was out all night. And when he come home, he'd have bankrolls of money. And one of my most, I guess, normal memories was him calling, and I'd pick up the phone that was hanging on the wall, because the phones hang on the wall back then. And he said, "Hey, Vinnie, go reach in my pants, get a couple $1,000s out, tell your mama come get me out of jail." And that happened not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5, 6 times. So I got used to it, probably more than 5 or 6. Well, ultimately, around 1986, my father, 1987, my father was on the news. He made the news. He had been robbed. He had been shot up, execution style. And we come to find out a hit had been ordered on him, and they tried to kill him. What I learned, we'll learn later, is the reason why they tried to kill him. Maybe one day I'll let him tell his story and he'll tell you why, but that's not my story to tell. Other than one of the ladies that he was dealing with was deeply in love, and since he wouldn't leave my mama, she put out a hit on him to get him killed. So they shot him 2 times in the back of the head, point blank range, left him for dead. I was still a kid. Got the news, heard about it a couple of days later, saw it on the news clipping. I was distraught, I was crying, so I was broken up. So this is, 3 or 4 years apart from the first murder. And still same neighborhood, same apartments. Well, Dad didn't, he didn't come in. My mom went and got him because he had a penthouse in the north. I say north because the youngsters say north. When he got released from the hospital, she said he gonna move back in for a little while. Well, see, my father owned a store, a clothing store in the north. He owned some apartments in the north. Again, he had all these cars, so he made a lot of money, all these Rolexes and things. But he was moving back into some apartments, like I said, near Keystone Pope, near 5 Mile, with us. But he didn't look like the same guy, My dad was a big, muscular guy, martial arts guy, boxer. He was thin. And I just attributed that to him being shot, him being shot in the head, point blank range a couple of times. Maybe that's what it was. A couple of weeks later, my older brother pulls me and my middle brother close to him and said, "Hey man, I know what's going on with Dad, man. He on that stuff. That's what they called it back in the day. He on that stuff. I know about it." He said, "I know about it because my brother was already off the porch. He was out here willing, dealing, and doing his thing." So yeah, that's when we found out my father was on crack. So he had lost the store, he had lost about everything, and he had been shot up. He moved with us, and so there became a tumultuous, somewhat upbringing. Because if you know anything about crack cocaine and how it destroyed families back then, it was rough. If you had a paycheck coming in, that paycheck was gonna be gone, right? It was like a super extra mouth to feed because the person slept all day, was hungry, and ate up everything in the cabinet, so you didn't have food. So that made us have to do different things. And so, again, I jumped off the porch and did anything that I needed to do to eat. And that's what changed the trajectory of my life. I can't even say that I was worried about my life being better. I was a kid. I was just trying to eat. Lil Durk said it in one of his songs. He says, if you get head pain when you haven't eaten, you go a couple of days without eating, you go a week without eating, with water jugs or just some carrots in there, or maybe a bowl of goulash. You go a couple of days without eating, and it make you do some real strange things, So I've done everything from pump gas, back in the days at Skag, switch the prices on little cars, opened up a little bike shop where we would just, sell parts for bikes, while some of the other guys would go and swipe the bikes, you know what I mean? I did everything that I had to do to eat. And my mother, she worked her feet to the bone. So when she needed the help, she got 2 jobs. Ultimately, she ended up with 3 jobs. So it wasn't that, but sometimes, when you live in these kind of tumultuous environments, right? I lived in the heart of the ghetto, roaches and rats and and alley cats. I even said in the song, roaches and the rats and the alley cats, brothers out back with a sack and 1,000 pack, hoping for a whole chicken, toes getting frostbitten, short of any killing. That's the way that we was living, man. When it's bad, when you got sewage running right outside your front door, you know, it's tough. And then on the side of you, when you're hearing certain things every day, you're hearing noises, and glass and walls being busted. My next door neighbor ended up being a famous guy too. And he wasn't Tevin Campbell. He ended up being a famous jazz musician. His name was Roy Hargrove. Roy died a couple of years ago. I think he died right before 2020. But Honey Bun was Roy Hargrove. He was part of the BC Rockers. Well, I don't know if his dad used to get drunk and just punch on him and his mama, or if he used to get on heroin or something and punch on him and his mama, but he would make that music. I mean, he would slam and bam and beat, and then later that night you just hear Roy, you know, playing his trumpet all sad, you know, just like a movie, you know. And that's how we lived. That was the life, living in Briarcliff Apartments, Keys and Poe. You know, I was glad as hell when they tore that whole thing down, because you had, you know, 12 people that got shot up by that pool. You know, and this is when the shower posse, when the Jamaicans were there. You know, they were just shooting up folks, and it was just a dangerous neighborhood. And you know, I know people miss their projects or they brick stones or whatever y'all call them. You know. But, you know, I think it was a blessing that so many bodies buried beneath the grass where Briarcliff Apartments were. Yeah, they definitely changed the trajectory of my life.
Recently, there's been quite a few interviews from some local DFW artists, or legends as some people see them. And a name that keeps coming up is Charleston White. Do you have any information about this person? Do you have any background about this person? What can you tell me about Charleston White?
Yeah.
We are the white boy that went to the Capitol, nigga.
Yeah.
We'll take a white bitch pussy.
I gotta take my shades off for this because I need you to feel me. Charleston White. Now that's a dichotomy for your ass. Community activist. Well spoken, brother. Matter of fact, the first time I heard of this guy, he had called into Gangster Chronicles, I want to say shortly after the Nipsey's death. Not sure, you know. But he had a little earpiece in. He was intellectual. And that was the day he introduced this guy called OG Percy, who went on to become an internet star. And Dewberry. I knew of Dewberry. I mean, if you from the hood, and you got folks in the prisons and penitentiaries, or junior penitentiaries, which we call juvenile, back in the days, you knew about Dewberry and all the Dewberries, right? Because there were a few people that had last names that were synonymous with a lot of people that were bad actors, and he was known for his hands. But anyway, Charleston, you know, spoke with those guys, and then he got invited to this show called Gangster Chronicles with MC8 and Mob James, you know, the one that told the story of how Tupac really got killed. So I was interested in that, and it was nice to see. And I was like, he's articulate, he's speaking for the town. He spoke on the behalf of whole Texas about the gang culture there. He's from Fort Worth, which was really one of the origins of the gang culture, because Dallas did pick it up a little late, right? We didn't start Crippin' and Blood until later. But I know when the Crippin' came, right? And it came from California, a guy named Rat. Matter of fact, Sugar used to come down with Rat, and he was a whole different set. But it would come down to Dixon and Dixon Circle in South Dallas, and they got a lot of boys on the Crippin'. But Charleston White was a Crip, went to prison for a murder that he says he didn't commit, but that his friends or his co-defendants may have committed. But he did 6 or 8 years or something like that behind the wall in the juvenile system, right? YA. And then ultimately, he some of the teachers and some of the officers took a liking to him, and they put him in another program like Upper Bound, and he was able to get out. And he always wants to go back and help kids. So to that, I applaud that brother. I mean, you know, when you're coming from a difficult background and you're able to see that you made mistakes, you know, I appreciate that. But there's been an awesome change in his personality in the last year, in my opinion, right? Now he's a shock jock. You know, he just says anything, you know. I know the other day, it bothered me a little bit, but not really. Look, I'm in business. I'm in and out of town. I'm all over the world. But he's talking about, you know, and I'm not going to say those words, but he basically said, you know, flip Oak Cliff. Everybody in Oak Cliff, everybody from it. So let me just give you a little history, brother.
Police on every last one of you goddamn niggas. You better shut your bitch ass up, trap boy Freddy. Your weed house is gonna get shut down, nigga. I don't give a damn about no shooters. Shooters get arrested too, nigga. I put shooters in jail. Fuck you talking about, nigga. I run this shit here, nigga. Ask anybody. Don't know, no, nigga. I run this shit here. I put niggas' asses in jail. Hell you talking about, nigga, I shut them weed houses down, trap boy. All that dope and weed y'all selling over there, nigga. I know which FBI agents to call to put on your motherfucking ass where you don't get out of jail, boy. Let a nigga say my name again out of Oak Cliff, trap boy. I'm shutting that shit down.
People from Oak Cliff ain't really from Oak Cliff. So you like, oh, they're not bona fide. They're not like South Dallas, West Dallas. I mean, that just tells me that's ignorance. You don't understand Oak Cliff. And I'm not going to spend much time on this, but Oak Cliff was a white area. Even when I was talking about this neighborhood that I had moved into, it was a white area probably 5 years before that. So early 80s, late 70s, completely white. Most of the black folks lived in West Dallas and South Dallas. That's just a fact. My parents came from South Dallas. My family, all of my family, South Dallas, South Dallas, South Dallas. All of my friends, their parents, South Dallas, South Dallas. And then you were looking for a better life, just like if you know anything about the Metroplex. You know, when people move to Frisco, when people move to Little Elm, and they move out to Wiley, and they move out to Mesquite, and they move out to Balch Springs, and they move out to Crowley, and they move out to, you know, Richland Hills. They were just looking for a better life. But these were bona fide people. I mean, I even think about my bloodline back in, you know, back on Bass Street. You know, my grandfather, Lincoln, my mother, Sock. So these people were bona fide. And so certain things you shouldn't say, but it's fine because who cares about a gangster legacy anyway, right? Who cares about that? At the end of the day, man, we're not here for that. Those are the tumultuous circumstances we deal with to get to where we need to go. But ultimately, we're here to inspire, help people, go back from whence we came, pull someone up, educate someone, educate ourselves, and then ultimately see God's green earth. And that's all I'm trying to do. I think, you know, if I could send a message to Charleston, if he'd hear me, I'd say, hey, go back to your roots. Some of the stuff you're saying is pure, you know. The Bible says that, you know, so a man thinketh, so is he. And Jesus said, oh, you generation of vipers, how can you being evil speak good things? He said, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. I'm going to let you choke on that because that's just scripture. That's Bible. You can't be double-minded. It's okay to be a character, but don't be double-minded. If you want to help the kids, don't only go to the juveniles to speak to them, but model for them. Not modeling for them because you're showing them horseback or showing them how to box. You don't have to be on TV smoking a blunt. I mean, if that's something you do, do it. I drink whiskey. I'm not drinking whiskey. I'm drinking water. And I didn't have to tell you that, but I'm telling you that. Just model it. Because that is not or should not be such a part of your life that that's what you want to show the kids. Show the kids what you want them to see. You want to show them to reach for higher objectives, higher goals. So do that. And so if I can appeal to that guy, that's what I'd say. I would say, you know, I saw you jump to Yellow, to Trap, to Mo3. Look, at first I thought you were right on something. I think you were saying forget the whole rap community, forget the whole gangster culture. I agree with all of that stuff because it's torn down so many things. The thing that we can't take back and that we appreciate is that it gave us all a place. You, Charleston, gave us all a place to put our sorrows. I remember going to school every day, fighting every day in the 7th grade, rapping Tupac because he was my hero. Cracked and took a part of my family tree. My mom was on it. My daddy splitting. Mom steady blaming me. Is it my fault? Just because I'm a young black male? Cops on my trail. Like my destiny is making crack sales. You know, I did that every day, hitting the bench. Because We were in the middle of a war. I was in a war inside of a war, right? My father was going through this, my family's going through that, and I got boys trying to serve them. You know, and I got boys trying to disrespect, so I had to deal with that. I grew up in one of the roughest middle schools out in Dallas. T.W. Brown. You were going to go to T.W. Brown, you were going to go to Hussey, or you going to go somewhere in the Grove, I don't remember all of them, but Holmes. But that's what that was. So I'm saying when you come out of those situations, don't go back and start saying people are soft and they're weak. I hope that they're weak. And I'm not saying weak. I'm saying I hope that they have their mind on other things. Maybe they want to raise their kids. Maybe they want their kids to be the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next entrepreneurs. So please, before you get on there and do these things, yeah, your views are going up, brother. Bro, your checks is looking good. But please go back and remember what you did it for.
Yeah.
We like the white boy that went to the Capitol, nigga.
Yeah.
We'll take a white bitch pussy.
Some days, man, I see you spitting that scripture and I can hear it. You speaking the real. And then some days, you saying the crazy stuff, talking about rapes and killing white folks. And man, listen here, I ain't into none of that stuff. So that's my opinion on that. And I'm going to leave it at that on Charleston White.
Now, a follow-up question to that is there was a recent Don Chief interview where he talks about Charleston White and several other artists and several other things that happened before and during and after his career. What are your opinions or what are your thoughts on that Don Chief interview?
How much will you give the fans as far as into your story, into your world?
So in the documentary, we actually got two. So I'm doing the DFW, the other side of DFW documentary first, because honestly, I can't speak about myself until you speak about the city, because it ain't nobody bigger than the city. So if the story ain't told about the city, how we gonna talk about anybody in this motherfucker? You know what I'm talking about? So boys doing documentaries on individuals, and it ain't now individual bigger than the city.
How far you going back? 'Cause you know we have Bobo Luciano in here.
Oh,
and,
we already started. We going back like to the 70s, 60s. Like I'm getting, you know, me and Ray Charles, the legendary, these street niggas, like we done talk. We had like an hour conversation. He down with the play. I know Curtis Blow. You know, we got West Dallas cats. So that's my thing. I'm doing the DFW documentary, me and my guys, and what we doing is we just talking about the culture of. We go highlight, you know, the worldwide, the people who are pretty much, you know, known worldwide, the Erykah Badu's, the DOCs, but.
Chief did good, man. Chief did good for the city. I'm one of the guys that can speak on it because I was there with him. I'm a couple of years older than Chief, I believe. But I know Chief. I knew Chief childhood best friends. I went to the West Dallas Boys Club, so I was always in West Dallas anyway. Had family in West Dallas, had family in South Dallas, Oak Cliff. Best friend was Eric, if I recall right. You know, and I remember EJ Nim and Chevlon. I remember all them cats. So, yeah, I know Chief, but I don't know him from there. I don't know him from the Boys Club. I don't know him from boxing. I know Chief from Grasshoppers. We used to call him Mimic. You know, YaYa used to call him Mimic. YaYa was the producer of Grass House. Grass House was the Dallas version of Swisher House. And I think it was before Swisher House. I mean, it started like in 92, 91, 92 with Chuck and I don't remember the other guy's name, but they told us about it when we were still at Kimball, man. And so Ebo and them, just a lot of guys. Not my Ebo, you know, not one of the Bows that I'm with, but Ebo, the rapper dude, you know, he was over there and a lot of dudes. So we would go over to this house in South Dallas and we would go record with the producer YaYa and him and Black G. So Polar Bear would come through there. That's my middle brother. Little Ampy D at the bottom. Me, you know, Vinnie Bo, Vibo, whatever, Triple O, Lil Mank. And then Chief would be there. And then you had Rollo the Pimp. Lilo. I mean, there was so many groups coming through that, man, and they were so good. They were actually pressing up these CDs and selling them all over the city. I mean, we were hand to hand with this, going to the car wash, driving back to the Cliff, going to North Dallas. They had the hustle. They had the and I think, like I said, it's 91, 92. I don't think that Master P now was even out yet, or maybe I'm getting my years mixed up. But either way, Chief was, you know, he used to imitate Too Short on the mic back then, or then he would imitate somebody. That's why they called him Mimic, because, you know, he didn't have his own style. But the one thing that was unique about him, his voice was super light. It was real light. And it was almost laughable, but the boy could flow. And matter of fact, I still remember one of his raps that today. So it tells you left a stain on me, but it said, "I want them finer things. diamond grill, something with them Dana Danes, you know. And he was kind of dusty back then. He didn't have no Dana Danes or nothing. He'd be with his brother, you know, and I know his brother went down for whacking somebody. But so they were about their business. They wasn't weak or nothing. But when he started seeing money and he started seeing Jim Jones and he started, you know, being cheaper and he started trapping and selling weed and all that stuff, yeah, that's true. I think that the only thing that I wish Chief would have done is pull some others up, and then don't stop with the legacy of himself. You know, like he said, like I remember, Pimpster did put him on. I mean, Pimpster gave him that look. Pimpster was gonna give me that look. Pimpster asked me, "Hey man, can you just, you know, can you give me just a little something to jump on your song?" Because Pimpster had the hottest song in the town at that time. You know, but before Pimpster did, my older brother did. That same dude, Larry Wayne. They had Slow Your Roll. It was on the radio. It was in rotation. And before them, I know Goldfinger had something in rotation. So, you know, the rap scene was, you know, different, but I think that they missing calling out some of the guys who did it before the Rally Boys. You know, I was one of the guys that turned all the black dudes on to JP in the kitchen because I was going to JP Boy when he was in Garland. I mean, he remembered me. You know, and so it's. I just wish they paid more homage to the guys that were before them. They paid homage to guys like Jesse, Cotton Mouth. You know what I mean? There was just so many guys doing it, man. Genesis, man, Joe Mack, you know, Joe Mack. I mean, the boys out of Dixon. So it was just so, I can't think of the one out of Buntown used to look like Ice Cube. God, dog, but he was one of my favorites, man. I'm sorry. You know, I can't remember your name, but I remember your version on the parking lot of Dixon. But I can't, Devo 1 maybe, or somebody like that. So anyway, if you pay homage, and then I think that YaYa, who actually is in my bloodline, YaYa, you know, Mo 3, you know, I know of him. I know of his manager. I know of where he used to be and around. I think that those guys would have paid more homage, you know. I think that if people were giving back and pulling people up, then that would have been beneficial. But yeah, he was the first to do it on a large stage, but he was also the first to get kind of clowned in public because Birdman said he was going to sign him on the radio and then turned out not doing it, put a little stunt, you know, like a stunner. So no, I always had, you know, my heart bled for him like that because I didn't know why that boy did him like that. But no, he had a good song with Jim Jones, Ballin', but it wasn't Ballin', it was another song. So no, he did good. But I think that he had some beef with, you know, guys not paying him homage. And I think it's more about, man, you reach back, you pay those other guys some homage. Like you want to tell this story about DFW, but man, but you got to really tell it because a lot of us got connections with Ray Charles. You know what I mean? A lot of us got connections with Curtis Blow. I'm talking about Curtis Blow, his sister, his mama too. You know, and they're just things that you have to know, and people you got to know that are dead, that died on this turf. You know what I mean? And so I won't speak on none of that stuff because I won't get into all of that. That's a past life. But other than that, no, Chief was cool, man. I like his music. I tell you, go mess with the East Greedy Boys, man. He was one of the most consistent ones out of Dallas, so you got to give him that love.
And lastly, do you have an opinion on the situation between Zero and Trey the Truth? There was a video that surfaced around that is causing a lot of controversy or letting people give their opinions on it. I would just like to hear what your opinion is on that situation.
Man, that situation broke my heart. That broke my heart because, you know, me and Zero probably around the same age. Me and Trey probably around the same age. But it's not that, you know. During our age growing up, whether you with a gang, I mean, I was with a gang or not. When you got into trouble, you know, a lot of us were skinny, you know, growing up. And you were going against different neighborhoods, not because of the gang, just because either they had you outnumbered or this dude got into it over a girl and then you got jumped. That's the very same thing that happened to Zero. And that's what formed the cliques. At least that's what happened with us. I mean, originally it formed what we called a bum rush crew, and later, you know, guys started running around the hood with the Trey 5-7, you know, and I'm not gonna name a bunch of my dead friends, but because I don't want people to choose sides. But you started banging because someone did you dirty. They took something from you, outnumbered you, snatched the chain. And so you said, okay, well, they'll never do that again because now I'm with them. Well, I'm with Keys and Polk now, you know. And I've had the blessing to be around some of the Keys and Polk OGs. Some of those are my partners, you know. Half of them, they all family members. But in South Oak Cliff boys and Dixon boys and all this kind of stuff. And so what I'll tell you is this. When you stomp on a man and jump on a man, 7 or 5, whatever it is, you do something to that man. And it wouldn't be beneath that man to want to do something to you. And I'm talking about really bad to you. Because when you jump on a man like that, you're trying to give him brain damage, you're trying to knock out his teeth, you're trying to knock his eye out of socket. That's not a DP. That's not a chastising. Man, you trying to kill that man, but with your bare hands. Listen, one of my brothers, man, they used to call him Bow Street, Polar Bear. That was his rap name, but Bow Street. He was known all over the city for knocking boys out. All over the city. Infamous. I'm not saying famous, infamous, because you really didn't know where he was or where he was from. But see, we hung in every project. We hung in every hood. So we would go see girls from those hoods. East Dallas, Fraser Court, West Dallas, Crosshampton. I mean, you name it, we were there. Hall Street projects, we were there messing with girls. St. James Apartments. I mean, every bad neighborhood, me and my brother was in it with a Tech 9. And so in all them neighborhoods, my brother done probably had to fight, and when he fought, he done knocked somebody out. And he normally knocked 2, 3 dudes out, 4, 5, 6 of them out at one time. And it's documented. But see, the difference between being famous and infamous is he didn't go around telling nobody about it. He became a legend. People see him and they say, oh, that's Bow Street, that's Bow Street. They didn't know how he looked. They just knew that was a guy who will be rumbling with you, and he mess around and do the splits and come up and knock you out or kick you in the face. That's all they knew. So, when you talk about getting jumped on, if that's your brother, you run around, well, we got jumped on. We got jumped on in Business, Dan's, and Kimball, and whatever you name it, because people always, nobody wants to go one-on-one with Bow Street. So I got to go back and look at that and equate that to maybe that Zero situation. Maybe Zero got them hands. Maybe Zero doing some stuff like Bow Street would do. Maybe if 2 of them came, he'd do the splits and knock them both out. So maybe they said, well, man, let's get 7 on him and let's sneak it, because that's the only thing I can gather. Unless you done something wild to these guys. But man, then you turn around and say that's your cousin? Man, listen here, my brother, my cousin do something like that ain't no love, man. So Trey, I ain't here to judge you, man, because we all have bad lapses of judgment in a moment. But the thing I wish you would have done is beat your homeboys or beat whoever wasn't family that was jumping on him. Because if you would have just had them back, then I wouldn't care about the sucker punch. That's life, right? We all done that or had it happen to us. The sucker punch ain't it. It's okay. And even if it was just you and your brother, okay, then that is still family. When them outsiders in there, man, they don't even have the same reason that they doing it as you. So, it broke my heart. I don't feel like I'm going to say, hey, be through with Trey forever, cancel him. No, I'm going to say, man, y'all are cousins. If you're cousin Zero, y'all can reconcile. But can I give you my take on it? Man, go back and handle them dudes, man, that you let get on them. You need to handle them. Zero, you need to DP him, and he need to be able to see it. That they didn't have no business in that. I don't care how close y'all was. That's family. And if you do that, then maybe Zero's daughters and sons can be like, okay, Uncle Trey did that for her. And then y'all have y'all head up, fade. And let him have his head up, fade with your little brother. And that's how we solve it with no guns, and we can move on, and everybody got their dignity. But Texas, man, we got to do better. That's all. We got to do better.
Well, I just want to say thank you for doing this interview with me. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm out.
Most of it, thank you for having me.
I'm from 147, legendary lane, a Keystone Polk associate, a 5-mile G. I'm tormented by Brockcliffe, the stiffest in OC. Saw my first body when I was 1st or 2nd grade, full of shotters and sewer rats and stank of them that ran that. Seen a man lose his chest right there in front ya, or break a bar rear, then pistol whip and stomp them. Dead bodies in the creek where they found Mike.